Well, welcome everyone. This is, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of Orangeville Town Council for Monday, January the 24th, 2022. Could we have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Councillor Peters, second by Councillor Andrews. All in favor?
Yes.
Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Seeing none, let's move on to the singing of our national anthem. Ms. Pormancherry.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Once again, thank you to David Nairn, the Artistic Director of Theatre Orangeville, for that rendition of our national anthem. We'd like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and the Odawa of the Three Fires Confederacy. This meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Could we have a motion to adopt the minutes of the council meeting of January the 10th, 2022? Deputy Mayor McIntosh, Councillor Post, all in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to presentation this evening. We have Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Andrews are going to share the duties to present the report and to present a presentation regarding the Men's Homelessness Committee. Turn it over to Councillors Andrews and Sherwood.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And before I begin, I just wanted to reference, in addition to the information, detailed information that has been received by members of council, there were two timely articles that were highlighted over the weekend in the Globe and Mail as well as on Television Ontario regarding issues dealing with homelessness. And a link to those particular items will be passed on to members of council. I do encourage members of council to, in fact, review those when you have time, and also the general public as well. Well, good evening. Both Councillor Sherwood and I will be presenting the report from the Town of Orangeville's Men's Homelessness Committee. This will be high level, yet it is hoped through this presentation you will gain an understanding of what is recognized as a societal issue, not only in Orangeville and Dufferin County, but across our province and country. On April 26, 2021, Council approved the creation of the Men's Homelessness Committee to explore the options and approach various stakeholders to research the issue of men's homelessness. On July 22nd, 2021, the Men's Homelessness Committee had their inaugural meeting and met on a bi-weekly basis throughout 2021 and into January 2022. Tonight's presentation is to provide you with a summary along with recommendations to consider.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Our presentation will include an update and overview of the Men's Homelessness Committee, including highlighting the recommendations from the University of Guelph Research Shop Needs Assessment, acknowledging what is homelessness, as well as presenting both the intermediate and long-term recommendations of the Men's Homelessness Committee.
Next slide, please. The success of any committee is made up of committed, passionate members. In this case, the Men's Homelessness Committee dedicated countless hours of dialogue that was comprehensive, impactful, and emotional. Included in our discussions were key stakeholders with experience in the field of support at various levels, and those who presented and shared what we called the lived experience. At this time, you'll see the names on the committee along with the stakeholders who I would like to acknowledge and thank in this visual slide.
The assembly and approval of the Men's Homelessness Committee was driven through the specific mandate to advise and explore options and approach various stakeholders to research the issue of men's homelessness with the goal of resolving the men's emergency shelter issue in Orangeville. On May 31st, 2021, the terms of reference for the Men's Homelessness Committee were approved by Council. The goals and objectives within the terms of reference were Phase 1, review the needs assessment currently underway through the University of Guelph, and meet with county staff to review the current status of men's homelessness in Orangeville and throughout Dufferin County.
In Phase 2, to evaluate the completed needs assessment and formulate recommendations, and report to Council on the results of the needs assessment and recommendations regarding next steps, including funding requirements. Now, to put things into perspective, on any given night, it is estimated that 35,000 Canadians experience homelessness and more than 235,000 Canadians experience homelessness each year. Homelessness can encompass a range of circumstances, including living on the streets or in places not meant for habitation, staying in overnight or emergency shelters, living temporarily as hidden homeless person with friends, family, or strangers, or in motels, hostels, or rooming houses, and residing in precarious or inadequate housing. This may be the result of several factors, including a lack of affordable housing, increasing unstable work arrangements, and rises in mental illness and substance use. Yes, even in our community, we see daily examples of those who are homeless. But do we really know and understand their story?
To understand the complexity of homelessness, it was addressed from a number of perspectives. One was through the lens of the University of Guelph Research Shop, and the other through the agencies that provide support for the homeless. The Research Shop's needs assessment was conducted through review of current services in Dufferin County, as well as through an environmental scan. A survey was administered with the service providers in order to rank what they thought were the main causes of men's homelessness in their community. The results of the service provider survey highlight the following: unaffordable housing, mental health and addiction, inaccessible housing, lack of resources to support men's needs, exposure to trauma or adversity, unemployment or underemployment, and social exclusion.
Next slide. The Men's Homelessness Committee were provided an overview of the efforts to address regional homelessness by Dufferin County under the leadership of Anna McGregor and her team, along with the Coordinated Access Table, or the CAT, who each week review what is called the By Name List. The By Name List is a list of every person in Dufferin County who's experiencing homelessness and includes their name, homeless history, health, and housing needs. The Coordinated Access Table have a number of mechanisms in place, included vetted service providers, which have resulted in a reduction in cases of homelessness, yet there are still gaps in supporting, more specifically, men who find themselves homeless. Funds to support this collective effort flow from the provincial and federal government and are administered by Dufferin County. Now, please note the key message at the top of this slide. There is no one agency or one level of government who can solve this very complex issue. This was part of the focus of a presentation by the department to the County Council in October of 2021.
The complexity of men's homelessness are deep, yet you may gain an understanding through these examples. We heard stories about 3 local men, all of whom are from well-known families from all types of upbringings. They or their family shared their experience of homelessness. We have Stephen. He had multiple years in and out of the system. He had mental health issues. He never felt safe in shelters. At one point, he ended up in jail, and he was released on the streets in the dead of cold of winter with just the t-shirt and shorts that he was admitted in. He almost died. He finally received and accepted services, and he's now housed and on his way to recovery. We have Adam. He's 37 years old. He is currently living on our streets, and by his own admission, he has failed in the system and he's struggling to change his habits. He's not accepted into the current program due to previous behavior actions. He admits he needs to change. He isn't allowed the motel voucher under the current criteria that Adam does not meet. He's working on improving his habits and he really hopes for a second chance. Finally, we heard about Brian. His family shared with us that he had multiple years on the streets of Orangeville and in Newmarket. Brian was in and out of the shelters. He battled mental health. He had addictions. He tried to get out of the system. Unfortunately, Brian passed away on the streets in December 2021. The stories shared by these three men show no stereotypical type are exempt from this.
By way of the University of Guelph Research Shop Needs Assessment, Opportunities and Next Steps, please find the following recommendations. Expanding the reach of current homelessness services, engaging more effectively with those with lived experience, consider the unique needs of people with lived experience of homelessness, improving awareness of homelessness services, and creating affordable housing.
Through all of the discussions, consultations, and review of the University of Guelph Research Needs Assessment, the Men's Homelessness Committee present the following recommendations. Provide crisis beds. Open a warming center as an interim solution during extreme weather conditions. Enhance the motel voucher program. Improve mental health resources. Consideration of a men's issues resource hub. We must improve communication, and we need to address affordable housing through future planning proposals.
Now at this time, I would like to ask the chair of the Men's Homelessness Committee, Mayor Brown, to speak for the last part of our presentation. Mayor Brown?
Right. Thank you, Councillor Andrew and Councillor Sherwood. As was stated and part of this report, homelessness is a many-faceted problem. We talked about rising housing costs, the lack of inventory, which is causing the cost of housing to rise. It was something that was discussed in our meetings and certainly brought forward by Ms. McGregor in her presentation to us. And the overlying health issues that are involved in homelessness, typically mental health issues and alcohol and drug addiction, these are some of the indicators for homelessness. And what we learned is the term crisis care bed is a facility where the support resources are provided for diversion programs to get those who are affected by homelessness into programs that will help them get back on the straight and narrow, specifically mental health and addiction treatments. So speaking to both Ms. McGregor and to Leslie Nagoda of SHIP, this is the type of facility that we need in our region, and it's one of the things that we're advocating for coming out of our committee and our report and recommendation to council. When you think about a crisis care facility and or shelter, certainly the word men's shelter, there's a stigmatization. We've talked about it in other areas of town. We know that it's going to be problematic placing a shelter. One of the properties that's going to become surplus to the town's needs in the coming year and a half or 2 years is the fire hall on Dawson. It's in a particularly good location for a facility like this, being across the road from social services, a grocery store, walking distance to downtown, and the amenities that could be offered to those residents. It's not in an area that's close to many residential. In fact, it's more in an industrial area. So our thoughts are that the NIMBYism that comes with the stigmatization of shelters or this type of facility would be at a minimum in that particular location. We've also reached out to some of the members of the committee, private members of the committee. There is the ability to start a capital fundraising campaign because that building would require a conversion, a retrofit cost, and the operational costs of a crisis care facility would be done through Ontario Health. So this is the nuance between a men's shelter and a crisis care facility. Crisis care facility is part of the healthcare system. The men's shelter would be more or less part of a housing need. But a shelter providing a roof and a meal doesn't get to the root problem that those who find themselves, many that find themselves in a homeless situation, that is mental health and addiction issues. And the crisis care facility, according to Ms. Nagoda, who's the CEO of SHIP, they've had a very high success rate in their facilities in Brampton and Mississauga. And so what Councillor Sherwood's spoken to, some of the lived experiences we've had, I had 2 conversations today, one with a woman who lost her common law husband over the last couple of weeks to addiction right here in Orangeville, and another woman who is currently living on the streets in her car with her teenage daughter. I mean, today, right now, in this cold weather. So we really have a crisis now. It's important to deal with these people that find themselves in these situations. And from what we've learned from the stakeholders that have spoken to our committee, the crisis care facility is something that we need to advocate for in our town and get the stakeholders involved behind it. And this is what we hope our committee will be able to accomplish in the coming weeks and months. We've already started a campaign to get support from stakeholders, the emergency services, fire, ambulance, and police. Many of their calls are involving mental health issues and addiction issues. And I'm sure that all of those service providers would agree that getting additional mental health resources in our area is of utmost importance. We know that this
unknown caller.
We know that this part of Ontario is underserved with health dollars. We need to get our MPP to advocate for additional resources for our area, specifically mental health resources, and this facility is one of the ways that they can do that. So in summarizing, I want to thank all of the committee members, all of the stakeholders who spoke to our committee over the past 6 months. It was an extremely important learning experience for all that were on the committee, and I want to personally thank each one of our committee members who contributed to this. And we think we're on the cusp here of making a difference, but we do need to put a pin in the map. We do need to select a site that we can move forward with the crisis care facility, and I certainly believe that the fire hall is one at the top of the list of properties that are available. So again, thank you. Now moving on, I guess I see a number of hands up right now. I'm wondering, Councillor Post and Deputy Mayor McIntosh, if we can move on to the report and then have the questions at that time, which is now. So, but Councillor Andrews and Sherwood, thank you for your presentation. Let's move on now to 12.1, which is the needs assessment, the staff report, and I'll let the report speak for itself. But there are a number of important recommendations in the report, and if I could just get into that right now. What we had was the idea of the crisis care facilities. We had warming centers. We have enhanced motel voucher program. We have enhanced mental health resources required, a men's issue resource hub, and improved communication regarding all the services that are currently available. And of course, a focus on affordable housing and the need to build more inventory in general. All types of housing inventory would affect those at the lower end of the economic scale and that need this type of housing. All right, so Councillor Post, go right ahead.
I will let the deputy mayor go first. His hand was up before mine.
Okay, sorry, I had my head down there. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Post. A very good presentation. I really like the direction this seems to be going. My question to you and your committee, as you know, the fire hall is built in a floodplain. Is a crisis care facility allowed in a floodplain? Just before we get too excited about this idea, maybe we should check, or maybe you have checked if it's allowed.
I think, again, I think all of residential buildings can be flood-proofed. As you know, Deputy Mayor, that facility, although it's in the floodplain, has had very little water on it. So, you know, the turnover of the fire hall into surplus asset of the town is some 18 months away. I think what we're looking for is the council to support the idea of that facility being there, and to start, you know, the staff reports and the investigation of whether that building can be used. But my belief is yes, it can be. It's not an emergency facility. We did learn from CBC that emergency facilities such as police and fire and ambulance stations would not be allowed in the floodplain. But there are cases where residential homes can be flood-proofed. In this particular property, I believe that that is the case. Councillor Post.
Thank you so much. I want to thank all of you for that report. That was a fantastic read and a great presentation. Like you said, homelessness is not an easy solution, and I'm really pleased to see that the recommendations that you've moved forward really include getting to the root cause instead of just looking for temporary solutions. So I'm really pleased to support any initiatives that you have moving forward for feasibility. And if that motion needs to be seconded tonight, I'm absolutely happy to do that. Now that's a temporary, or that's going to be a long-term solution. Now in the short term, you did mention the idea of opening up a warming center location. Has there been discussion, or is there any suggestions of locations that would be available for this winter that we could implement immediately? I know our rec centers and stuff might be difficult right now under COVID restrictions and things like that, but is there another location that's been talked about or that could be opened? And my second question, if I may, is, has conversations been had yet with other levels of government, such as MPP Sylvia Jones or our MP Kyle Seaback, to see if there's opportunities for funding available that we can start to count on now and really start to put towards some of those feasibility costs and things like that? I think it's an important issue that if we can move forward sooner rather than later, I would be absolutely thrilled to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Post. I'll let Councillor Sherwood speak to the warming center issue, because she did reach out to staff and we did have a conversation, and then maybe I can talk to the stakeholder question that you asked second. Go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Post. Thank you very much for your kind words. The warming center, I did investigate through our staff with Mr. Osmond and Mr. Brennan, and it's something that we can look into. Of course, it comes with all kinds of rules, and it could end up coming at a cost. A motion would have to be put forward, but I would be very much appreciative if we did put forward a motion for a warming center and have staff come back as quickly as possible to provide what they anticipate those types of costs are. If Mr. Osmond is on this evening, perhaps he could give us just a general overview as to where we would be looking if it's possible to open up a warming center. We suggested at the Tony Rose.
Mr. Osmond.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Sherwood and to Council. It's been quite a question in terms of space. There are protocols, of course, around a warming center, and I know we were closed down for a while. We're going to open up on the 31st, so it kind of helps a little bit. If we're open, of course, people can come into the building and get warm for a short period of time. The big question is when you put in what I'll call an official and formal warming center, they would have put some things around it, criteria around it. There is public health issues that we have to make sure we're taken care of. We'd have staff that will be there 24 hours around the clock, certainly all night long. And we'd have staff that will be qualified to deal with any eventuality that comes in through the door. and those kinds of things will be put into place. And of course, there'll be costs to setting up a particular room. We couldn't open a warming center and just have it in the lobby. We'd have to designate a warming center space, and that space would be equipped with all the necessary equipment and so on and so forth that you would require to have someone come into the building. So these are the kinds of things we need to look at. And as Councillor Sherwood alluded to, there are some costs associated with that, and we have not looked at the direct costs involved or the indirect costs for that matter. So we need to take a look at that once council gives direction if that's what they desire to do. We would take it back and do some work on it and come back with a report.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Osmond. Councillor Post, so on the outreach to other levels of government and stakeholders, we have started some of that work. I think it's important that the council determine, and we'll have to look at what the criteria are for using the fire hall. And I think we'd have to set certain, criteria. For instance, the Ontario Health Team is the one that would fund this through SHIP. And obviously, if the operational costs are not provided by the provincial government through that funding stream, then it's not possible. So that would be one of the criteria that we have to meet, is to get provincial approval to run that facility here. But with Ms. McGregor stating very strongly that this is something that is needed even more than a men's shelter, and Ms. Nagoda, who runs them and would be running one for this in agreement with this, I've already reached out to Kim Delahunt, the CEO at Headwaters. We've also reached out to our emergency services chiefs, Reed, Morden, and Ward, asking for their input and support letter. On the 27th, Councillors Andrews and Sherwood and I will be in front of the Health and Human Services Committee of the County of Dufferin. Our intention is to ask all of the municipal mayors and their councils to support this. And also, I think we're going to go to Mayor Thompson in Caledon, because as you know, Headwaters Hospital serves not only Dufferin, but Northern Caledon as well. And it's a very important facility, and something in Orangeville would serve the Northern Caledon residents as well. So this isn't going to be that hard of an argument to make with any of these people. I think we're going to get significant support. I think it was a little bit premature to go to Sylvia Jones, but I think if we as a group, and I don't think tonight is the night, but we are going to make a motion in the next council meeting that we try and make this happen at the fire hall. And if council agrees to that at our next meeting, that's the time when we need to ask Ms. Jones to go to bat for us, to meet with Deputy Premier and Minister of Health, Christine Elliott, and work this through and make it happen for us in Dufferin County in Northern Caledon. And I suspect Ms. Jones will be supportive of this as well. And it's a win-win that we need. We know the mental health resources are lacking in our area. We've seen examples of people dying because they didn't get the help that they need. Real people that we know, their sons and daughters. Today I talked to two people. One was living in her car, and the other was lost her former common law husband, her former spouse, and father of her daughter, was found dead in the washroom of a big box store in Orangeville in the last 2 weeks. So this is real. It's happening right now. And the mental health and drug addiction and alcohol addiction issues are at the root of many of these problems. And if we don't get that additional resources added on to the shelter, which is what the crisis care facility is doing, then we're not doing our job as members of this community, I think. We really need to go to bat for these people and again, some of these people, you know them, you know their sons, and they're from, well-to-do families and upper middle class families that have had tragedies happen because of mental health and drug and alcohol addiction issues. It doesn't just happen to the lower echelon of society. It's happening to the middle and upper middle class in this town. So yeah, we will get the stakeholder buy-in, I'm quite sure, and I'm sure at the appropriate time we will engage Ms. Jones. I think I will ask her to come to one of our meetings, and let's talk it out. I'm sure she'll be supportive of it. All right, councillors. Yes, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to make the rest of my council members aware that Councillor Andrews and I and Mayor Brown, we learned a lot, I'll tell you, when we sat on this committee. And the lived experiences story, I'm sorry, they really got to me passionately. But one of the things I wanted to bring to the attention of people that may be watching is they might think that, oh, we're already paying taxes for Orangeville, and if the county pays, we're paying 50% of that. A crisis care facility would be funded from provincial and federal funds. It wouldn't come through Dufferin County funds. It is administered by Dufferin County, and this is one of the things that we found out. Dufferin County does disperse funds to help Choices and SHIP, but that money isn't coming from the Dufferin County taxpayers directly through Town of Orangeville taxpayers, and that's one thing that we want to make clear. But if we do the warming center, it will come at an expense to us. But obviously, we don't want to throw staff at something that might have they might have to come up with some kind of people that might show up in more of a unstable type of physical or whatever. So we would want security as well as staff, and so that would come as a cost. But I just wanted to make you aware that we had our eyes open, that the Ontario government and federal government are providing funding, and the crisis care funding would be coming from them.
Right, and just to follow up on Councillor Sherwood, I've had a couple people reach out to me about, is this a good spend of the tax dollars of the town of Orangeville? And we're trying to look at how this would be funded. And, we had a couple of council meetings ago, a discussion about SHIP purchasing the motel up on Northern First Street. They bought that for somewhere between $3 and $3.5 million. So what I'm suggesting is the fire has a real estate value. I think it could either be sold for fair market value or leased for fair market value. I don't think that we are going to be giving this away, and I don't think there's any intention that it be given away. And I do believe that one of the other positive aspects of this committee is it shone a light on this issue. And I believe that the community understands that there's a problem, and that if we had a capital fundraising committee put together to raise money to convert the building, that we could raise a significant amount of money. I'm very certain of this. And then if the building's converted, now all we have then is the operational costs, and that's where the province comes in, much like the long-term care facilities that we've learned about. The long-term care facility can be built, and the capital cost of it can be arrived at. But if you don't have the operational costs set up ahead of time, they can't work. It doesn't work. And so we need to have both of those pieces of the puzzle put together. But I think we've got a good sense of what needs to be done, and the support from the committee. Members of our committee are still willing to go ahead and work on the campaign, on the capital fundraising campaign, and we'll get this money together. I'm quite certain of it. Any other questions or comments from council? Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I do want to say a thank you again to the members of the committee. I want to commend Councillor Sherwood for bringing forward the idea of a warming center, and I know that Mr. Osmond has provided quite a bit of information, not only in this council meeting, but also in our other discussions. As I ended up referencing this at the beginning of our presentation, I do encourage members of council and the general public to, if they have the opportunity, to link into some of the information that not only is a part of this presentation, but also more importantly, some of the other most recent information that has been presented by the Globe and Mail as an example in TVO. You have what is called a situation such as sleeping rough, and the pandemic has not helped, not only for those of us who are of means, but those that are in fact as the mayor has highlighted, those that from a socioeconomic and wellness perspective have found themselves not able to utilize all the facilities and or all the sources that are available for a variety of reasons. But I think what is critical is that we ended up having some incredibly important information that was presented as part of the report from the University of Guelph and their research shop. Just as a point of reference, that was a top-notch report that was provided, and I think that the gesture that is being put forth as part of this report is to provide a bursary of, I think, a donation of about $2,500, which really is an important gesture to that particular organization. But we had some top-notch doctoral students that were, in fact, as part of the research that was conducted. So I'm, again, so thankful of those of us who were part of the committee. And as was alluded to, we learned a lot, and we still will be learning a lot for years to come.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. So again, thank you to all the stakeholders who took part in our committee meetings. Thank you to all of the members of the community who took part in our committee. And that just to end 12.1, I want to review the recommendations of the committee are that the report CPS 2021-086 Men's Homelessness Committee Needs Assessment be received. That the University of Guelph Men's Homelessness in Dufferin County a Needs Assessment be received. The council accept the committee report and recommendations from the Men's Homelessness Committee, and the council approve a donation to the University of Guelph Research Shop in the amount of $2,500 from the council public relations budget. Can I have a motion for that, please? Deputy Mayor McIntosh, seconded by Councillor Sherwood. Any further comments before we vote on this? All in favor? All right. Thank you, councillors. I think this is an important move that we're making, and there'll be more to come in the coming council meetings. But thank you, and thanks to everyone in the community who participated. All right, we'll move on now to 12.2. This is the property standards bylaw amendment. Just a sec here. Sorry, I'm having mouse issues here, folks. My apologies. Okay. All right, property standards bylaw amendment, CPS 2021-059. The recommendation is that report CPS 2021-059 regarding property standards bylaw amendments be received, and that a public meeting be held on February the 7th, 2022 at 7 p.m. to obtain input from the public on the updated property standards bylaw. Can we have a motion on this item, please? Councillor Post, second by Councillor Andrews. Any comments or questions to staff, council? All right, all in favor? Thank you. All right, item 12.3, the use of corporate resources during an election policy, CPS 2021-072. This is a recommendation that reports CPS 2021-072, use of corporate resources during an election policy be received, and the council adopt the use of corporate resources during election policy as outdated in report CPS 2021-072, and to amend the Code of Conduct for Council, local boards and committees policy by deleting section 10, and that any previous resolutions and or policies of council regarding the use of corporate resources during election are hereby replaced. May I have a motion on this, please? Councillor Sherwood, seconded by Councillor Peters. Any questions or comments, council? All right, all in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. 12.4, vehicle for hire bylaw. The recommendation that reports CPS 2022-04, vehicle for hire bylaw be received, and that a public meeting be held on March the 7th, 2022 to receive feedback and comments on the proposed vehicle for hire bylaw, and that staff report back to council on April the 11th, 2022 on the comments and feedback received. May I have a motion on this, please? Deputy Mayor McIntosh, second by Councillor Andrews. Any comments, councillors? Yes, Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. Quickly regarding this particular report, there was one item there I wasn't sure if, again, I may have missed it in the report because there was a lot to review. But regarding the appeal tribunal, who on staff might be able to just provide an explanation on who would this particular tribunal be made up of?
Ms. Landry? Oh, Chris Johnson. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Good evening, Chris.
Chris was the author of this particular document. So, Chris, thank you for joining us. And yeah, if you could answer Councillor Andrews, please.
Through your worship to Councillor Andrews, I was actually going to defer that to the clerk. I believe she would be the expert in that field.
Okay, very good. Ms. Landry.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Just with respect to the appeal tribunal, the way that it's structured is it can actually be a committee of council, or we can determine to appoint a person to adjudicate over those matters. So when it does come forward, a bylaw would be needed to do one or the other. So that hasn't been determined what it will actually be yet, but the wording in the bylaw itself is flexible so that you can do it either way.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, any other questions or comments at this time, council? All right, all in favor? Very good, thank you. Moving on to 12.5, this is a council task report, a recommendation that reports CPS 2022-006 council tasks be received. May I have a motion to receive this, please? Councillor Post, second by Councillor Sherwood. Any comments, councillors? Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. It's just more of a comment that I wanted to thank staff for bringing this report. It really does open our eyes as to what things we have on the table for staff, and it gives us a good visual of what's being updated and what's coming. So I'm really thankful for this type of update. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's very important for the community and those watching to review and see all of the work that's being done, even behind the scenes during the pandemic. There's a lot going on, and thanks to our staff for pulling all that information together and being able to enlighten council as to the progress of these various tasks. So thank you. All right, moving on to. I guess we didn't vote on that, did we? Let's vote on receiving that, please. Sorry, folks.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to 12.6. This is regarding 15 Faulkner Street, the removal of illicit property from the Municipal Heritage Registry, INS 2022-06. A recommendation that report regarding 15 Faulkner Street, removal of illicit property from the municipal register be received, and the council supports the removal of this property from the Townsend Municipal Heritage Register, and that the following condition be imposed in consideration of any future residential demolition permit application submission for this property. Number one, that the applicant allows Heritage Orangeville access to the subject property to document the existing structure and any existing historical elements on the property. We have a motion on this, please. Councillor Sherwood, second by Councillor Taylor. Any further comments, councillors? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Moving on to 12.7, 35 2nd Street demolition on a municipal register property. Recommendation that the report INS 2022-07, 35 2nd Street demolition on a municipal heritage register property be received, and the council not oppose the demolition of an accessory detached garage structure on the property. Could we have a motion on that item? Councillor Andrews, second by Deputy Mayor McIntosh. Any further comments or questions, council? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Andrews, you have a question?
Just a comment. I was very impressed by the renderings that were received. Just for clarification, and I may have missed this after going through the documentation, is this a single unit dwelling, or will there be, Mr. Ward, an opportunity for additional dwellings within that particular construction, because at least the visual looks like there could be. But again, if you could provide clarification, that would be appreciated.
Mr. Ward.
Through your worship to Councillor Andrews, no certainty at this time as to whether they're going to explore an accessory dwelling unit, perhaps in the basement or what have you. It's largely a two-story addition to the existing rear part of the building, and as part of that, there's a detached garage structure that has to come down to make way for that.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, council, all in favor? Thank you. All right, moving on to correspondence. We have 13.1 and 13.2. 13.1 is a proclamation request regarding Parental Alienation Awareness Day. And at 13.2 is Orangeville BIA Board of Management changes and signing authority. May I have a motion to receive those, please? Councillors Post and Andrews, any questions regarding these items? All right, all in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 14, we've got committee and board meetings, the December 9th, 2021 Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee minutes, and the November 2nd, 2021 Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes. You have a motion to receive those, please?
Your worship, did you not miss 13.2?
Well, I combined them, I thought.
Oh, okay, sorry, okay.
Did you have a question, Councillor Sherwood?
No, sorry, I gotta try and keep up.
Okay. Can we have a motion then to receive 14.1 and 14.2? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Taylor, all in favor?
I have a
Thank you. Sorry, do you have a question, Councillor Andrews?
I just wanted to make a comment very quickly to the EDI committee. We did have a very special guest that was a part of our January meeting that was referenced as coming. I know that it will be highlighted in the minutes that will be forthcoming probably February, March when we receive them. But I again just wanted to take the time to thank the Director of Human Resources, I should say, of EDI and Human Rights with Humber College, Nancy Sims, who really was an impactful guest speaker, which was referenced, and I think more importantly, the input that she provided to the committee was, I think, very positively not only received, but also incredibly impactful too. So I just wanted to make that comment publicly.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Andrews. So again, we did vote on that. All in favor on receiving those? Yes. Okay, thank you. Item 15.1. This is a notice of motion prior to meeting from Councillor Sherwood regarding MPAC province-wide reassessment. Councillor Sherwood, did you want to give a quick update on this?
Sure, I might just quickly read it to you for those that don't have a copy of the agenda. It's the MPAC province-wide reassessment, whereas the Government of Ontario recently announced the continued postponement of the provincial-wide assessment update for the 2022 and 2023 taxation years. And whereas this means that property values will continue to be based on January 1, 2016 valuation date till at least 2024. And whereas the town of Orangeville is aware of the important increase in property values throughout the province and within its own jurisdiction. And whereas the continued postponement of property valuations translates into significant loss of taxation revenue for municipalities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Orangeville urges the Government of Ontario to reconsider its decision and to direct MPAC to proceed with a provincial-wide assessment update in order for our Ontario municipalities to be able to collect property taxes based upon actual property values. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, Minister of Finance, MPP Sylvia Jones, MPAC, AMO, OMTRA, and I forgot MFOA.
Very good. Okay, do we have a seconder for this, folks? Councillor Post? Any questions or comments, Council, before we vote on this? Councillor Peters and then Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just wanted to sort of make my thoughts known on it. I will be supporting it, but I think the missing piece here, at least in my perspective, is this isn't so much about tax recovery or increased taxes or that kind of thing. But if you think about this trend, and the longer it's delayed, the more pain there's going to be felt down the road, I think. So, if and when that jump is made to make up for 4-6 years, whatever that period happens to be, that's an economic hit, I think, that we're trying to avoid as well to the residents. So, for those that think maybe this is purely an economic thing, we have to think about trending that at a lower pace than all of a sudden getting hit, with a very large increase in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I guess Councillor Peters kind of stole my thunder a little bit there. I don't want to see us go without the tax dollars, but at the same time, selfishly as a resident in the town, I'm not in a real hurry to pay it either. So, it's kind of a double-edged sword here. But the thing that's always confused me, and I bet you other residents who are watching this wouldn't get it either, if your house was worth $500,000 5 years ago, which could very well be the case, and today in their lovely town, it's $1 million, which could very well be the case, what happens to your taxes? And I guess I would ask that question of the treasurer. Mm-hmm. So if I paid $1,000 when my residence was $500,000, would you simply reason that it would be $2,000? And I know I'm making it very simplistic, and that's not necessarily the case. And candidly, for everyone behind the scenes, I've had numerous mentoring sessions from our treasurer about this, but I think it's a really interesting point because it doesn't necessarily simply double. It has to be done over a period of time, and I'll stop nattering, but it's something that the rest of us need to be educated on.
Madam Treasurer, I'd like to offer a little bit of clarity on that and Councillor Taylor's question to you.
Thank you, Worship. Through your Worship to Councillor Taylor. So, Councillor Taylor, I won't calculate your tax levy or tax rate in real time, but what I can offer to you, a simple explanation. So, doubling of assessment, to your point and to your example, doesn't necessarily mean that your tax dollar will double, because there are other variables that factors in, and one of the variables is how much money we need every year through tax levy. And that is a process we go through every budget year. So I think earlier today, I was having a conversation with His Worship. So the assessment base, the relationship of assessment base to tax rate is inversely proportional. What that means essentially is the larger your assessment base is, the town will have a much better chance at levying higher tax dollar without increasing the rate. So one quick example would be in 2022, our tax levy has gone up by 0.83. That doesn't necessarily mean everybody's tax dollar will go up by 0.83%. So like I said, there's quite a few variables, and that's why it really varies from tax classes to tax classes. And even within the same tax classes, it varies from properties that are fully vacant versus fully occupied. So it's very difficult to give you an answer like one size fits all. But I think back to Councillor Sherwood's motion and echoing Councillor Peters' comment about it, I do agree that the longer we delay this, the chances are the province, or in this case, MPAC, will do catch up in 2024, and that could result in a spike of increase in assessment. But at the same time, from a municipal perspective, we really want a sort of a continuous increase in our assessment base so that we keep that base robust. Like I explained, that helps us levy tax revenue to service our service levels without impacting tax rates. I hope I answered your question, Councillor Taylor.
I think so. In the end, the majority of people who are property owners probably won't be pleased, right? Because they will pay, but it's an inevitable process, and we really are behind. The government hasn't been able to do this because of our situation. So I do agree wholeheartedly that we need to do it. Again, I'm just not anxious to have it, but I get it.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Treasurer and Councillor Taylor. You know, I had a similar conversation this morning with our treasurer, and one of the things that came out of it was, you know, how does the assessment happen with MPAC? And, you know, me thinking that, you know, these assessors are going out physically to look at properties, and I was corrected in my thought, and that a lot of this is done from data that is available, from sales records and building permits and things that have changed the assessment value. And so, scratching my head this morning and asking the treasurer, well, why would the provincial government stop that work from happening when it should have been able to happen at home of each of the assessors? So, I think you have to boil it down to, it was a political decision to do that. And I for the life of me, can't figure out why. So anyway, there's my 2 cents, but I think because the assessors will be working from home right now, they should have just done their work and completed it. But anyway, it's beyond our reach. But thank you, Councillor Sherwood. You are joining us with a group of many other municipalities who are sending similar letters in to our provincial government to get this moving in the shorter than 2024. That's for sure. Okay, thank you. Let's. We did vote on. We haven't voted on this. All in favor? Okay, thank you, Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you.
Any notices? Any notices of motion at the meeting? Councillor Post.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As everybody should recall, a couple of weeks ago, I guess maybe December now, we did bring forward a motion to look at extending the burn bylaw times. That was to come back at this meeting. So I do have a notice of motion that unfortunately didn't make the agenda that I'm hoping we can deal with tonight. Basically, what the recommendation of staff is to if we want to continue with looking at extending the hours rather than putting in an end date today, put it in till March 8th right now so that staff can then report back to us to see if this is something that we should look at changing permanently or if we should do it on a temporary basis. So the motion tonight would basically read that we would continue to temporarily amend the bylaw until March 8th, 2022 to have the burning times be between noon and 11 p.m. And then staff will report back at that time to give us some feasibility of extending those hours permanently or ending it. Before this was coming to council, I did speak with our fire chief, who did let me know that there was actually a reduction in burn complaints since the inaction of this bylaw changing. And he let me know that he had no concerns with the extension as long as there isn't a significant increase in call volume, which to date there hasn't been. So my hope is that we can deal with that today and have it extended until March when staff can report back with some feasibilities.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, are you seconding this motion? So, Madam Clerk, do we need a motion to waive the time requirement here?
Yes, you do, Mr. Mayor.
All right, well, let's do that first then. Councillor Post is making a motion to waive Deputy Mayor, or Councillor Taylor's got his hand up. Very good. So all in favor of waiving the time requirement here? All right, thank you. And then we do have the motion from Councillor Post, seconded by Deputy Mayor McIntosh. Any further comments, councillors? All right, all in favor of extending?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Councillor Post. All right, any other notices of motion at meeting? I've got Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Peters. Councillor Taylor.
I'm sorry, I was so excited that you were going to go on to new business that I wanted to be in there, so I will withdraw my hand.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Councillor Peters.
Thank you. You did not call for votes opposed to the fire permit.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Let's have opposed. All right, Councillor Peters is opposed. Thank you, Councillor Peters. Any further notices of motion at the meeting? Mr. Brennan.
Your Worship, I just want to mention we had some discussion earlier about a warming shelter. I'm not sure if council wants to provide some direction to staff tonight or not.
Right. Councillor Sherwood, we did have a lengthy conversation with Mr. Osmond, and he did update us again. What are your thoughts, Councillor?
Well, I would very much like to see staff look into the cost of a warming center, and just just basically, we wouldn't be open seven days a week, from now until April or whatever. It's basically under certain weather temperatures and extreme weather conditions. This is something I kind of hate to see delayed another couple of weeks, but Mr. Osmond, how much time would you need for staff to come back if we were to put forward a motion for that? Because we're in the dead of winter now.
Yes, Mr. Osmond.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Sherwood. Well, we would. You're absolutely correct. We are in the dead of winter, and it's something that we need to move quickly on. We have done some legwork on in terms of what needs to happen. We need to take a look at the staff that are required to operate something like this. And you're absolutely correct. It's not something that would actually operate, 7 days a week from now until the end of winter. It's something that would be triggered based on temperatures, and you'd have staff that will be actually called in when required. So we have to look at the logistics around that. It will certainly take us another. If we can try to aim for the latter meeting in February, it might give us time to try to finish our legwork and move quickly as possible to get it done. So the last meeting in February.
So that could be a something that we could consider for, say, the future going forward, like for every winter going forward. Is there anything we can do in the interim, like based on now?
In the interim, we can, certainly allow people to come in and have a little space in our buildings to have people go to a space to stay warm. The concern I have is having staff stay from, basically a 24-hour shift. Have staff broken up to cover 24 hours. So if you come in the building and we don't want to be kicking people out at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So we'd have to take it back and take a good close look at that and see if we can have staff come in and operate a facility beyond, let's say, 11 o'clock in the evening until 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. Because we're open essentially at 6 in the morning. And most buildings close between 11 and 12 at night.
So basically, once we're going to be reopening on January 31st, correct?
That's
so people
correct.
Can go in through the day, at least from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. We need to get that 11 to 6 a.m. covered. And again, my thoughts were like, I know right now coffee shops aren't open, so these people can't even go in and sit in a coffee shop. But that's why I wonder what we could do quickly. But it sounds like there's a good deal of hours covered anyway, from that 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. And we've got to communicate that yes, during extreme weather conditions, anyone is able to go into there. We're not necessarily providing cots and beds for them to sleep and food, a place to come in and get warm. But waiting to the end of February for, I don't know. I know I'm.
It takes a little bit of work, and we also got to reach out and find the qualified staff to be in that building, deal with situations that we have to confront. So we still need to do our legwork, and I don't want to promise something I'm not sure I can deliver on. So if we do it earlier, that'll be all the better. But right now, we do need to look at logistics and look at the cost of providing such a service. I'm not too concerned about during our regular working hours. I am concerned about having the proper people there at night, late at night, into the morning.
So if we could put forward a motion to have staff report back by the end of February. In the meantime, if our communication department can please communicate out to the community that from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., our facility will be open for them to come in and warm up.
Right. But Mr. Osmond, would it be possible to hire a couple of tag security officers, for instance, to be in the lobby at Tony Rose and allow people to stay in the lobby at Tony Rose without involving town staff? And could you contract a group like TAG, and would that work?
Your Worship, I would put it this way. We're going to look at all the possible ways we can do this as quickly as possible. We do have TAG on contract for other purposes, and it may be something we can extend, but I don't want to commit ourselves at this point because I don't know all the logistics. But let's say that we are very concerned as well, so we need to take a look at what happens late at night when we go into the overnight hours. And if it's just a matter of having security, that's one thing. But we also need to reach out to our to other stakeholders, public health as well as the county and so on that provide social services and see what they would do or can provide in the overnight hours. Maybe there's something they can do to help to at least get us through the short term.
Okay, so I think Councillor Andrews, just let me make one more comment, then I'll bring you in. But
sure.
It sounds to me like what we need to do, Council, is to have a resolution tonight to direct staff to come up with a policy which will be incorporated for years to come and would be implemented under certain weather conditions to allow a lobby area such as Tony Rose to be open for those who find themselves in those situations of homelessness, right? I mean, and that would be by the end of February, you think, Mr. Osmond, you might be able to come up with a policy that we could adopt going forward? Okay. So, Councillor Andrews, I'll let you speak, and then maybe we can pass a resolution to that effect.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do want to support Councillor Sherwood's motion at this point, however it ends up evolving to be. But I think that, you know, the point that needs to be shared, and I truly appreciate Mr. Osmond's candidacy and the opportunity to provide a report by the end of February. But what we are looking at is the now, and the now is that the complexity is that the province also implemented some very clear restrictions on facilities that can't reopen until the 31st. And so we've had this gap. We also, as Councillor Sherwood indicated, is the situation that exists within some of the coffee shops that may be open, you know, kind of 24 hours where there is that period of time. So we really are looking at that period of time after 11 to about 6 or 7 o'clock. But I think that the other piece that was also referenced is the communication. I know that the short term is really important and vital, and to see if there are other community organizations that might be able to also provide some temporary relief as we're investigating this. Because to your point, Your Worship, I think it's imperative that we have a policy in place that takes a look at those areas when the temperature is below -15, when it is, you know, terribly cold. We want to ensure that at least we have some place where people that don't have a place to go to have a place to go to.
Right. You know, I'm remiss here because one of our committee members did reach out to me earlier today, and I forgot to mention that we did have an outreach to clergy in our area, and a number of clergy members stood up and said they're willing to help on the homelessness front. So, you know, it may be possible for us to find a church that might be able to accommodate a warming center in concert with the town's efforts to do something more permanently in terms of policy going forward. So let's see if we can reach out to some of our church friends and see if there might be a way to make this happen as well. But Mr. Osmond, if you could speak to TAG and see what they might be able, how they may be able to help either in a town facility or in a church facility here in town on a warming center, I think it would be helpful. So just to recap, so Councillor Sherwood, what we're going to ask staff to do here is prepare a policy that would be triggered under certain weather conditions to provide a warming shelter. And I think we've identified Tony Rose as being the ideal location, being close to downtown, and also, you know, one of the, I think, easier facilities to provide a warming area. You know, Alder is such a large cavernous building that it may be too big to deal with, but Tony Rose certainly would probably be the better one. Is that correct, Councillor Sherwood? Yeah.
Yes, and we do want to communicate once our facility is open. Communicate to the public, please, about at least the daytime opening of such facilities. Okay, Madam Clerk, do you have enough there for a motion for council here to approve tonight?
Yes, I do.
All right, do we have a seconder here? We'll make this Councillor Sherwood's motion. Councillor Andrews, any further questions, comments, additions, council? No, all in favor? All right, thank you, Mr. Osmond. Thank you, Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, council.
Yeah, any further notices of motion? And before we get to new business, we know Councillor Taylor wishes to speak. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Kind of a fun thing that was brought to my attention. I think it settles nicely here in new business, but as we know, the pandemic and the lockdowns have created havoc for sure, and I'm hoping that we're all going to be out of them at the end of this month. Something was brought forward to me by a local restaurateur, and it's something that's happening in Barrie. And in Barrie, what they've done is they've implemented a program where you can have your parking ticket forgiven if you produce a bill from a local restaurant where you frequented and enjoyed a meal. There's certainly things in here. So the program doesn't apply to tickets that are related to safety matters or overnight on-street parking restrictions, but the cost would be minor to the town of Orangeville. Yet it would be kind of a fun thing to put forward and certainly stir up some things for the BIA and the local restaurants in town. So I just bring it forward for discussion. I'm not really sure where I'm going with it. It was just a neat thing that was brought to me, and I thought I'd share it with each of you and see what your thoughts were.
I'm wondering, Councillor Taylor, if between now and next meeting, if you could get some statistics maybe. I think the clerk's department has some good statistics on parking, and see what the cost would be. I think I agree with you. It probably wouldn't be significant. And anything to help our local restaurateurs get back on the straight and narrow, so to speak, would be helpful, I think. So, Deputy Mayor?
I think it's a great idea. I think the BIA should be involved in any discussions that we have on this. Just my 2 cents worth.
So, Councillor Taylor, maybe I can suggest you bring it to our next meeting, in a more formal manner, and perhaps do a little bit of research on what the cost might be to the loss of revenue in there, so we understand the economic impact. But again, we probably should be supporting our local restaurants in a bigger way anyway, as we.
Yeah. Just if I may, Your Worship, I just want to be clear. I lay no claim to the idea, and I certainly didn't do my reading to find it. It was all force fed to me. I just think it's a great idea, and if I could, I think a lot of us are attending the BIA meeting this week, and maybe there'll be some discussion around it, and we can get some further clarity from what the BIA wants at that meeting. Maybe they don't even want this. I just think it's a neat idea.
Fair enough. All right, thank you. Any other new business, councillors? At this moment, just want to remind everybody, town staff, recreation staff's been out putting our ice rinks in very good condition. Just to remind everybody that this unusual cold snap is great for ice making. I've heard some rave reports from Rotary Park and from the Diane Drive sports pad of the condition, and everybody's having a lot of fun. So if you haven't been out skating for a while, highly recommend trying out our Parks and Rec facilities, our outdoor rinks. All right, are there any questions, Madam Clerk or Ms. Pomancheri on the line? Question period?
Through you, Your Worship, there's no one on the line at this moment.
Very good. All right, moving on to bylaws. We have a recommendation. Let me find it here. That the bylaws listed below be read 3 times and finally passed. Can we have a motion on those bylaws, please? Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Any further comments?
Mr. Mayor, just so that council's aware, it does include now the open air burning change that Councillor Post raised earlier.
Right. Yes, correct. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for that correction, adding on the bylaw that Councillor Post has brought forward. All right, all in favor? Very good. And a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Sherwood, second by Councillor Taylor, all in favor?
Yes.
All right, good night, folks. Thank you very much. All the best.
Night all.